Good afternoon and welcome to Michael Pepper Tech Live. I know it's been a while since I've been live, and just bear with me a second here, and we'll get into it. So, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the news space as far as Apple lately and the privacy versus um, child exploitation aspect of things, and the way that they are scanning and monitoring content as far as how this works and as far as concern over this. And so we'll get into that a little bit. But first off, I want to talk about kind of where's this outrage? Where's this balance? Everybody goes, Samsung and Apple are treated unfairly. They're given a pass. But at the same time, why is Google, Microsoft, Facebook, all these other companies given a pass? Why are they not treated the same? Why is their method of scanning content not looked into? Why isn't there questions of pros and cons of each? Why are people, not discussing that? Where's the outrage been for the last 11 years that this has been taking place? Where's the where's the question of transparency by other companies? Well, I agree that this could be done differently, and while I express concerns myself, firstly, a concern having to do initially with the Fourth Amendment and then the Sixth Amendment, and also concerns having to do with privacy, we can discuss this all. And we can dig into it. We can talk about how there's concerns over whether this is an invasion of privacy. So, if you're new to my channel and you don't know, I tend to get fairly in-depth and analytical, but in a way that I try to explain things to people. Also, for anybody who is out here, if you're watching this live and this is something you want to come on and discuss, you want to ask questions, whatever, um, let me know. I can shoot you a link on Twitter, or you can send me a DM. I have it open and I can send you the link. So, let's talk about encryption and decryption. So you have a file, let's say it's a photo, and basically there's a lock put on it. We have encryption. There's a code, and Apple's method basically there's a code that's created, the device creates the code. The device also is the only thing that has the way to decrypt it as well. The only way that basically anybody has access to what is encrypted would be you, because you have the decryption key hardware side. Then there are other methods in which you upload content to a server. The server can encrypt it and decrypt it, but you'd have no say because you do not own that server. You do not own access to that. That can be tracked back to you because it is not anonymous coming into the server. So when we're looking at this method of scanning for particular content, no matter what it is, lately it's been about CSAM, and if you don't know what that is, Google it. because I'm not going to say it because YouTube will, do their thing and block this content. And I feel like it's important discussion to educate, to discuss this, to talk about different sides of this. And at this point, I would like to say hello to Tech for Your Needs, Mark Sequence, Sneed Mobile Tech, and Miles for joining me in this impromptu live stream. Just kind of, there's been some things on my mind with this, and so some things that I see differently, and people approaching this from different aspects, and we all have our opinions and thoughts on this, and I just felt like a live stream platform was an appropriate way to express it versus a video where people can comment later, but they might not see the response. So this is an opportunity to discuss this, to approach, to ask questions, to be nice to one another, no name callings, to understand this is opinion, and while some terms I may use are, related to the Bill of Rights, I am no legal expert. I do have some criminal justice education and some law education, but this is all opinion. This is all process based on what I've seen, based on what others are talking about, based on the information that I can divulge directly from the companies themselves. So one thing that concerns me is that while everyone is ridiculing Apple for this, and everybody says, why does Apple get different treatment? This is exactly why. Because people on Twitter, people out there treat them differently in positive and negative aspects. And if you want fair treatment, you got to treat them equally all the time. And this is what I'm asking for. I'm not saying, oh, Apple is doing this better, so treat them differently. I'm saying Apple is doing this differently, and look into it. Look into how other companies are doing it. And I've tried. And where's Google's documentation on this? Yeah, they have documentation. It's very vague. It talks about their AI. It talks about how you can acquire the AI to be used across your website. But it doesn't talk about whether or not that these APIs are being used by app developers to scan on your device. None of that's out there. They're not saying when or where. And so there's lots of assumptions being made as far as how these other companies are scanning through the data that you provide to them. And remember, anything that's being scanned is because you're using their service. So it's being scanned because you're uploading to iCloud. It's being scanned by Google Photos, OneDrive by Microsoft, Facebook Messenger, Facebook when you go to upload, their servers because they store content when you post photos and videos. All of that is monitored and scanned. But the question is, when is it done? And we don't know. Are they doing that on your device to every photo that you bring in? If you use Google Drive, are they scanning every photo that can be seen by that app? Or are they only scanning as you upload? Or are they only scanning after it's uploaded? There are the questions about that. And when we look into the process, and there's even a diagram that lays out the visual process of how Apple's doing this, we see that you have the device. It's all on its own. If you don't use iCloud Photos to back up, they don't touch it. When you click to use iCloud Photos, part of that process, and when they're analyzing the photos and they're grabbing them to be uploaded, they're searching and comparing to a database. And rather than that being done afterwards, which some agree is a better idea, and I think it could be as well, but I also think it's a bad idea, and we can get into that in a minute. So currently, I'm using my iPhone as a web camera. I talk about that. So imagine this is your device. And you have photos and videos on here. And you don't use any cloud service, so they remain on here unless you physically transfer them to another device or use something, to send them to another device via Wi-Fi, via, airdrop via um, casting sort of method in which they're transmitted from one device to another without going over the internet, without being loaded to a cloud, without being stored somewhere like that. Now, when you sign up for iCloud, and I don't know about these other services because they really haven't been so clear and forward about it as far as when I've done the research, all of them kind of say, well, yeah, we scan it on our servers, but they don't say, like, is it scanned as it's going onto their servers? How are they scanning? What are they scanning? And we know they're all scanning all these photos because how else, when you search for, like, a duck, does every photo that you've taken that has a duck in it show up? Or you search for a certain person and every photo that you've taken with that person and it shows up. Or you search for, car and every photo that has a car in it shows up because they're scanned, they're monitored. If they weren't at some point, then that wouldn't be possible. And whether it's the device that's doing that as the image is pulled up, or whether it's already being done by their servers, already being done by their AI, already being done by the API of whatever app you're using that can show that, there's all different methods. And so you wonder, like, where is this being done? And how is this not an invasion of privacy? So the method that Apple is using essentially says you're using iCloud photos, you have a secure enclave on your device in which we will use and we will put these hashes that are hidden, that no user has access to. They cannot analyze it, they cannot grab stuff off from it, cannot be interpreted, misused. It's encrypted and it's hidden. Those hashes contain information about the visual aspects of images that are known to contain this inappropriate content, this illegal content. So your photos you're going to upload, as they're coming across to being uploaded, as they're being turned into iCloud photos, they're being compared to these hashes. Direct comparison. It's not searching for new content. It's not gonna say, oh, Michael took a photo of his son bathing and, oh, we think that might be inappropriate, so we're gonna report it. Because it doesn't, it's comparing. It's like if you have a bunch of photos and you put in a hash list for cars, for blue cars, it's only going to report back to you blue cars. But if you put in blue and cars separately, it's going to report back to you every photo that contains blue and cars. There's a very precise technique that's used to analyze all those photos to create a hash list, and that hash list is compared. Then, if one of the images matches, there is a key that is applied, a code that is applied to the image, that in turn is encrypted, that is attached to that image, and then when that image is sent to Apple, that hash remains there. Until enough instances of this occurs in which they determine that basically there's a threshold that's been met, and then, only then, are those images sent for manual review. So imagine it's like you are a content creator and you go to upload a YouTube video, and it scans it for copyright. Well, when does it scan it? It scans it before it's uploading. It's being scanned by the servers. It's being scanned before it leaves your device and before it's completely uploaded. If there's a violation, you'll be notified and it will not go through, or you can contest it. This is the same idea. An image being uploaded to a server that you do not own, but you agree to the terms and services. You agree that that is their property. You agree that, this content that they're searching for is inappropriate. So this is similar to, and this was something that was brought up during a stream last night, something that I've thought of, something that I've talked to somebody about, done my research, talked to some legal experts about, and this is like the idea of you go to put boxes of your possessions into a storage unit. And that owner says, you know what, I gotta stand by, make sure that you're not trying to put any, illegal items in here. You're not trying to start up a meth lab. You're not trying to, store illegal weapons. You're not trying to, because we're liable for that. Because even though you're storing it here, this is our property. So Apple's doing the same thing. They're saying, as you go to transfer that content to our servers, which we maintain, which we own, which we provide as a service, as a way for you to back up those images and to access, the device will scan it. And some people say, well, why don't they just scan it on the server side? But then are you going to pose the question of, why does Apple why do they now have access to my content on their servers when they said all along they don't? So the middleman is the device. The middleman being the device processing it. The middleman being the device that decrypts and then re-encrypts it before any of it's left the device. So it maintains its privacy. It maintains the accuracy of that encryption. It maintains ownership to you, just as all of it does, until you choose to upload it off from your device, until you choose to transfer that over to servers that you do not own, nor maintain, nor have rights to, in which the responsibility of any illegal action could be given to whatever company. Google for Google Photos, Amazon for Amazon Photos, Apple for iCloud Photos, OneDrive, Microsoft for OneDrive, Samsung uses OneDrive. The other approach I want to think about is when you go to download content and that stuff is scanned and your device scans that. Do you say, oh, I don't want my device, I don't want somebody else having access to what's on my device, I don't want the device scanning it? Do you say, well, it should have been scanned by the website? Are you saying that you trust that the website is going to scan that? Because I see this kind of in the opposite direction of that. Do you trust that if it's being scanned off from your device, the device that creates the encryption and is responsible for creating the decryption, that it will be re-encrypted and that it won't be misused, that those hashes won't be misinterpreted because all of a sudden there's been some sort of interference done to the image when it leaves your device? There's no way to maintain reliability. There's no way to maintain that. And the other question with this will be an issue of evidence. So let's talk about the legality aspect here. So, Fourth Amendment right to protection against illegal search and seizure. And some people say, well, Apple is acting like a government agency by doing this. No, they're not. They are scanning content that is coming onto their property, just as you ask that your device is protected, that content is scanned before it's accessible to your phone and causes damage to your device, or illegal content comes onto your property. Apple is requesting that your device scans for content before it comes onto their property and they're damaged and they're responsible for it, or before their property is being used for illegal transmission of data. And some people go, well, how do they get to determine what's illegal? They don't. They don't make the law, but they still have to follow it, just like you still have to follow the law. This is US based. And I believe there's a reason for that, because they understand the concerns that Russia and China will use this to create some sort of program. And there's questions over what's the next step. What if the government, what if the agency that's creating these hashes, that same agency that creates the list of this, determines that other things they don't want transmitted and they want to scan for and report that? Well, what happens if Amazon, who hosts servers, decides that as well? Then Amazon prevents their servers from being able to send that out to any user who searches for that information. It already takes place. We cannot look at this and go, well, what happens if this and that? We're already trusting all of these companies. We're trusting that there will not be a political bias. There's some naive to that. There's something naive to the idea of trusting these companies. So when it comes to privacy and when it comes to trust, it's which companies do you believe are doing their due diligence? Which companies do you see being completely accurate about this? Which companies are being forward? Which companies can I research and determine their process? I see Apple with documentation and expanded documentation on the process and giving it in layman terms and not, talking about hash tables and all this stuff. They reference it so you can do further research and know the process that they're using. But they show visual and they explain it. Meanwhile, I'm sitting back and I'm looking and trying to determine, how does Microsoft, how does Google, how do all these other companies do this? How do they provide access, and how do they analyze it, and where do they come into play? And I don't have the answers to that because I don't see any of that. There is no answers to those questions. There's no...
Hello?
Howdy.
Okay, now I'm very confused. Can I
Okay.
sorry to interrupt you? My apologies. My dongle doesn't have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. So I have to use these. Am I going through this or am I going through this? I'm confused. Do I sound clear?
You sound fine to me.
So I don't know. I like using this a lot because it's portable. You know already about it. And I don't know. It's fine. Let's continue.
So, my concern is that everybody... So, my next thing is that I'm getting into is that everybody asks this and everybody says that Apple gets no passes, but it seems like they're giving passes to every other company by saying, well, the companies are only scanning it on their servers, or the companies are doing it this way and that way. Well, Apple's accessing your device. Apple's not accessing your device. They are using the device, which creates the encryption, which scans all your images already for things to ask it to scan the content before it's sent to their servers, to protect their servers, to protect their possession, just as you ask for data to be scanned before it's put on your device to protect it your device. Yes, your device is scanning it, and yes, those hashes are put there, but you are agreeing to that with the terms and services. You're not agreeing to every image just being scanned just because it's on your device, and every image to be unknowingly sent to them and to be unencrypted when it's done so, and for it to be sent directly to the FBI without any sort of intermediation. There is a person involved. When those hashes are matched and it is reported to Apple that those hashes are matched, then there is a manual review, which is much better than trusting some sort of algorithm that could fail. Now, the failure rate that they're claiming that this algorithm has, or that this software has, it's not really an algorithm, it's a comparative technology. The algorithm that, or that technology that's used, has a failure rate of less than 1 in a trillion per year. Meaning, as more is brought in, as more is scanned, that failure rate should drop. And if there is a failure, because any matches are that meet that threshold are being given manual review, a person is to look over that. So let's say I take a photo of my son, he's in the bathtub, and that's backed up to iCloud, and somehow that gets hashed to match a photo that's in that database. And I've got like 10 photos, and let's say that matches that threshold. Then Apple looks at it and goes, "Well, he's just uploading photos of his son taking a bath. There's nothing abusive about that. There's nothing sexual about that. There's nothing illegal about that content." And then those hashes would be cleared. They've interpreted it just like when you upload to YouTube and there's a copyright concern and somebody goes and reports it, then YouTube's algorithm is going to look over it, but YouTube also does manual reviews of reported content. Of if you report abuse, if you report bullying, if you report um I don't know, a video that has somebody being attacked on it. If you report a video, they then do the due diligence to look over it. So when Apple says we want your content to be scanned and your device is going to do it, your device creates the encryption. So your device is the only device that can encrypt and decrypt, and only way to guarantee that the image is just as though it remained on your device. I based on this technology and the way that it works, I would almost say that there would be a higher risk of failure rate if this is done only server side, because there are issues with potential for the data to be maybe gobbled up when sent to their servers, where when it's on your device it's just as clear as when the image was taken or when you downloaded it or when somebody sent it to you. I would be more concerned that if it's being done server side, there could be misuse of this. Because one of the things that was talked about was misuse of technology. Was it being used to scan for other things like, AR-15s, M16s, drugs, alcohol? I mean, there's been expressed concern that says, "Oh, that they'll use it to scan for an image in which there's a bottle of alcohol and a kid, and say, report that person for being, putting their child in danger or something." Well, how does it do that if it's scanning on your device, and if Apple is being forward about what they're scanning for? and being forward about the databases that are being used and allowing you to opt out of it. You're not forced to use that. Only if you want to use their services. But if you look and you're going to use other services, just make sure that you're educated to understand that those other services scan just as well. And look into, do you feel okay with how they're doing it? Do you feel okay with every photo being scanned and being flagged and not knowing if there's some sort of encryption being done, some sort of protection against the identity that it matches to being done? Or can that be known by their employees? Can that be known by somebody that monitors those servers? Can that be known? So that gets into privacy, because my concern with that is that that's way, way, way more unsecure, way, way, way more a violation of your privacy than the image being scanned on the device before being sent to Apple and then being decrypted and then re-encrypted before it's sent off. Those hashes being made private when they're attached to the image before being sent off, so that even if somehow somebody at Apple does monitor or somebody did gain access to your account, it's not like they could look and be like, well, we see these hashes and we know that this person has inappropriate. Because one thing that's being left out to keep in mind, and Lewis, question for
Mm-hmm.
you.
Okay.
Have you seen anybody mention that every image that's being scanned has a hash attached to it? Have you seen anybody mention that every image actually has a result attached to it?
No, just only, well, I can't say everybody, but I'll say the techie community knows about it that I talk to. But the regular people in my family doesn't know that. So
So,
getting, go ahead.
because I asked that question because basically, if you read into this, there is a result,
Correct.
basically a positive or negative, that is then re encrypted when it's attached to the image that resulted in that, so that that result cannot be interpreted by anybody apart from the device itself.
Hmm.
So all that anybody would ever see once it leaves your device is that there's a result attached to it, but they don't see whether that's a positive or negative. So imagine imagine this, right? Imagine I ask Tech for Your Needs if I can store some boxes at his place, and he says, "Sure, I have a closet. You can store 10 boxes in my closet. Sure, I have space." And I go, I'm on my way, and I, pack them into my vehicle, and I bring them over, and I put them in his closet, and then I leave. And then he goes into the closet and he looks through them to make sure that he's not storing some sort of illegal content, because they're now in his possession to protect themselves. So that would be one method about it. That would be like the server scanning it after it's put on there. Situation 2 starts out the same, but when I reach Tech for Your Needs apartment, before I even, or I reach, yeah, when I reach the storage destination, before I can even offload it from my vehicle to where he's going to have me store it, he's searching through it as I'm handing it over. That's another technique where it's still server side, but it's being searched through before it's being okayed to be put on the server. Third technique, before I
Oh,
can even pack it up while it's at my house, I am required to photograph and tag everything and as I pack it up, and then only the stuff that I photographed and have then proved that it does not contain any illegal content, because let's say the police have to sign off and say that it's clear before I can hand it over to Tech for Your Needs. That's another option. All of these techniques have pros and cons. One of them being, the first instance being, I have just given my possessions over to Tech for Your Needs because I trust him, right? Just as we trust the company that we're handing our content over. But because I have no way of guaranteeing that that information, that content is locked up, encrypted, that I'm the only one with the key, because I didn't put it in some sort of lockbox. Because Tech for Your Needs says, you can bring it here, but I'm going to look through it after it's here to make sure that nothing illegal is done, and you go, okay, I know I'm not doing anything illegal, go for it. But all of a sudden, I get a phone call from the police saying, we found, I don't know, something contraband in your contents at Tech for Your Needs, and Tech for Your Needs has reported it. How do I prove that I didn't place it there? How do I prove? I'm not saying that Tech for Your Needs would do this. By no means. I'm just using him as an example because he's a
Yeah,
great friend of mine. I
analogy.
trust him. I have that same trust that we should
Hmm.
have in the companies that we're doing this business with. How do I prove? I can't. Because I wasn't the only one with access to it. I wasn't the only one with the key. I didn't put it in a lockbox. I didn't scan it
Ooh.
before and take pictures and videos of it before I sent it to him. I didn't do any of that. In the second instance, because Tech for Your Needs and I went through the content when it reached when I got to his door before it comes into his possession. If they were to do that, we could both basically testify and say that's not possible. Tech for Your Needs could then pull up, let's say he has a camera. He could then pull up a camera at his house and say, you see all the stuff that he brought in, you see it right here. There was nothing illegal in there. And we both could have sworn affidavits to that testimony and subpoena and say somehow somebody got in here, and maybe Tech for Your Needs looks back and goes, oh yeah, somebody somehow broke into my house and that's how it got in here. You're protected in a way. In the third instance, in which I lock all of the items at my house, I have photos and videos, I have gone through everything, I have submitted that to Tech for Your Needs, to Lewis, saying, here, I've gone through it, I have no need to worry, and it's locked. That means Tech for Your Needs is protected because he has seen that everything that's being transferred into his possession has no illegal content. I'm being protected because I lock it and I have the only key. And I know how secure it is because not only do I have the only key, but that key possesses a code in which I am the only one with the hardware that can create that code, and my boxes are the only piece of can only communicate to my hardware, so I know I am protected, and Tech for Your Needs knows he's protected. That third instance is basically what Apple is asking to be done. They're saying, to protect us and to protect you, when you go to upload to our services, which is our possession, which is our closet, our storage unit, it is going to be scanned. And you go, well, I don't want you having access to it. Well, think about the other instance. Think about the instance of the unknown who then has access to your content once it leaves and is on their servers, and they're being able to access and scan everything without your key. Think about that.
Hmm.
The
And you know
method that
what?
the method that they are looking for, that they are going to implement, you have to give them permission to do this. And you are giving them permission by saying, I am using your storage unit. I am using your closet. I'm using your possession. I am using your service. Just like you give permission to Google Photos, to Google Drive, to OneDrive, to Facebook, to Samsung, to any of these companies when you use their storage method for your possessions. So, do you not want to know that your images are only being monitored by your device and then being encrypted, being made private before those results, before that then is then sent over to them, and that you're the one with access? And people go, well, iCloud isn't encrypted. iCloud isn't secure. iCloud has been hacked. No. Those passwords have been hacked because people used the same password and that password was hacked, and that's how they gained access. That's how they gained access. That's like saying somebody, you know, this is the problem. As Sharkfin Tech says here, that's the fine print nobody reads when they check box agree to all. So my question is, how is ignorance an excuse to not understanding how this works? Because the person that does that is the same person that agreed from the beginning to say, well, we just believe that stuff is private. We believe that it's secure. We believe that it's being done on the servers by these other companies because we don't know other than that. So
Yes,
here's what
but
I'm going to say. The reason why I trust, the only reason why I can trust any company, the only reason why I can trust that Apple says this is how we're doing it is because that's what they've said. So the idea of privacy and trust is based on your experience and knowledge with them. The only reason that I can trust when I have a FaceTime conversation with Tech for Your Needs, and that content of that conversation remains between him and I, is due to that our prior communication and our prior connection and the relationship over time that's been developed, right? I didn't just
mhm,
off the bat go to you when I've had times where I've been dealing with, anxiety, depression, personal stuff, right? I didn't just day one go, hey, Tech for Your Needs, I don't know who the hell you are, but I trust you and
mhm,
I'm going to. That would be foolish.
correct.
But Apple is day one saying, we're being transparent. We are providing you the documentations, the resources for this research. I can't even begin to understand how frustrating it has been for me to try to find this information when it comes to Amazon and the other companies. And so when somebody says, oh, I'm being a fanboy, no, I am wanting all companies to be treated equally under the expectation of this. I'm wanting more information from all of them, and all I'm getting is people saying, well, you know, supposedly this and that. Supposedly. Versus the information that I can read and see with my own eyes versus past experiences of Apple going to court and fighting against access to your device versus
Mm-hmm.
Apple now saying, this is exactly why we're doing it on device. This is exactly the process we use. This is how we read. This is how we interpret. This is how we compare it. And this is what happens at the end of that. And this is how your images, how those results are encrypted so that no other people can see whether or not any of your images tested positive or negative against those hashes. Or would you rather risk that your images are uploaded to their servers and their servers do the scanning and their servers do the analysis, and now your images have to be like, they have to know who they're coming from because that's the only, because they've accessed it from your device. So now they know those images came from Michael Pepper because they came from his account. And now we've scanned and we know that the results of those versus every device that agrees to use our service scans it, then the results are sent to us, and all we're doing is looking at the results. Then, if enough of those hash results occur and a threshold is met, then, only then, can the decryption be done. And those hashes are on your device, those hashes are on their servers. So what's going to happen is that when that threshold is met, then the account will be reviewed. Then will they know what the results are. It's like you have I'm trying to think about how to go with this.
Yeah, worded.
Basically, I would be more concerned that they have open access to scan all of your stuff and to attach hashes to it on their servers without any sort of like encryption and decryption, and they now know exactly if if your device or if your images came back with those results, and their employees potentially have access to that. That is way more, that is an extreme privacy violation because they know exactly whose accounts then that came from. Where if it's done on your device and all they see is that every single image has some sort of has a result attached to it, has like a sticky note attached to it, but they don't know what's on that sticky note. That's like that's like saying you have a box of content and every single piece in there has a sticky note attached to it, but you don't have a way of knowing if that sticky note says yes or no, if that sticky note says positive or negative with the result. So that's like saying every single person that goes into a clinic to get tested, you know that every single person is being tested, but you don't know their results. Would you rather it be that the doctor tests you in front of everybody else, in front of other employees, or would you rather the doctor test you in the private in the back, and then those results are between you and them? So imagine the doctor is your device, and your images are you. That's where I see this. That's where I see a huge difference, and where I see maintaining privacy as much as possible being a benefit of it being done on device versus you're just going to trust that their servers are going to do it and not know what they're scanning for. Their servers already do it. If they're going to do it server side, they're already going to scan for it. this is so that it doesn't make it to the servers to begin with. This is so that they're protecting themselves and they're protecting you at the same time. They could say, you know what, we're just going to scan everything on our servers. We're just going to scan everything as it comes in, and we're not going to make it anonymous. And if a result comes back, we're just going to report that. We're not even going to review it. We don't want to see it. We don't want it coming onto our servers. A matter of fact, we're not even going to let it. We're not even going to let the results come onto our servers. We're not even going to interpret it. We're just going to judge you as guilty to begin with one result, and we're going to send that right to the FBI, and then the FBI can come and subpoena your device and scan it. This method is more like, we don't want it coming onto our end. We don't want people misusing our servers to proliferate inappropriate content, and they have a right to that. They have a right to determine what is stored on their servers. They have a right to protect themselves from illegal activity occurring in their databases, on their property. Just as though you have a right to protect your device from being misused. Just as you have the right to protect your device from illegal content, from stuff being put onto your device. Because if you ask to say, well, handle it all on your end, if you ask for them to say, well, don't scan anything on my device, then with that same responsibility, then the whole wide web should be allowed to just be streamed onto your device without any sort of filters, without you choosing what can have access. Because if they can't choose to block something before it gets to their servers, then how do you get to choose to block something before it makes it to your device? It's a two-way street. Upload and download are the exact same thing. It's just upload is going from your device to theirs, download is from theirs to yours. It's an exchange of hands. It's like I am holding something in the palm of my hand and go to shake your hand. Are you going to check over that before you take it out of my hand, or are you going to take it and then get busted as you walk down the road because there's something illegal in there? So I want to know, to people in the chat, to people in comments afterwards, why are people okay with not knowing and with other companies scanning it on their servers and potentially flagging it and potentially everybody gaining access to, and their employees knowing who those results are responsible for, versus your device handling it, because then it remains your device to interpret it. Your device, the encryption, the decryption key that is created by that secure enclave on your device is responsible for decrypting the hashes, for then encrypting the results and sending those out so that Apple servers don't know anything. They don't see it. They don't know the results. They don't have a clue the difference between all the images that I upload, which I know are legal,
check the
versus
comment.
some pervert next door uploading illegal content. They do not know the difference until those results meet a certain threshold, which your device then tells them, hey, we've got a bunch of illegal content on here. I think that's a fair take, Michael. Call me a skeptic, but I'm not sure that I believe that Apple isn't building a giant facial recognition database with Face ID, but I'm okay with this latest issue. What facial database? We already know it exists. How do you think that they know that? I mean, they test this against employees, but you've already given permission by when you go and you search through your photos and there's that people section, you created that database on your device. There's an algorithm that's done device side, but you've created that algorithm and helped support it on your device by when it pops up and it goes, who's this? And you go, well, this is Peter and this is Frank and this is Alice, and this is Ashley,
Oh,
and this is John, and
Louis.
this is Tom, and this is Lewis, and this is Bob, and this is Michael, and this is Sarah, and this is John, and this is Daniel, and this is all these people. You've created that on your device. They're already doing that. Has been sued, and they have admitted to scanning your photos to help further their algorithm for computational photography and to help improve facial recognition. All these companies are already doing this.
Yeah, but the problem is that I see it is that, sorry to interrupt you, that people, like one of my friends asked me about this because she was worried that it was going to be used wrong. I was trying to explain to her, but she's a regular person. So she said other companies don't do it. Apple's doing it, but Apple is talking openly, and then people are being skeptical or being like, "Oh, I don't want to deal with Apple because of that, because it might take my information." But remember, it's a lack of education, and she's not a techie person, so therefore, and she's always aware of the news, but she have sometimes don't understand it. So I had to break it down like you did to
This
make it her
is
understanding.
this is why I felt like I couldn't just not do a live stream. I wanted to do a video, but I knew that it wouldn't be that nobody would watch the whole thing. And
Correct.
I know that nobody will watch this whole thing, but I wanted to do this because I wanted to reach out and I wanted to interpret this and I wanted to discuss how Apple's doing it, but it doesn't matter that it's Apple. If Google was doing it this way and Apple was doing it a different way, I would feel the same way. What frustrates me is that people look at this as a negative, but what would have happened if Apple hadn't said anything? Then people would continue to to feel like, well, Apple. Then people would do the opposite. They would go and be like, oh, Apple was trying to hide something. Like when it comes out that this is added, because this is not done. This is something with the iOS 15, iPad OS 15, Mac OS Monterey stuff that comes into play. There's some of this that's already done. There's some scanning that's already done by every company. But Apple coming out and being forward about it makes me concerned why other companies aren't. Is it because they don't want the
Correct.
ridicule? Is it because they don't want the honesty? Is it because they know that people would be concerned? Is it because they have fear?
But you know what?
In a way, I applaud Apple for saying, you know what, this is what we're doing. We want to be forward about it. This is how this has existed. And you know what Apple didn't do that they could have done? They could have come out and said, oh, and by the way, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, blah, 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 all these companies are doing it, but they didn't. They come out and they say, we're comparing to a database, this is what we're doing. What angers me is why is no other company talking about this? Why are all these other companies hiding behind like a one-page Google search? I had to search for it. I had to do a Google search to find Google's information on it, which is very vague, and they don't explain any of their process. They don't tell you whether it's server side. They don't tell you whether it's being done on a device because you agree to it to be done when you download their application. They don't tell you what the terms and services of this of this use of it are. That is
But
angering
that's
me
up to the
because I have
person.
no
But
way
that's
of
up to the
knowing.
person.
But if the information isn't out there, that's my point. Like, yes, it's up to the person to do the research in a way.
Yeah, because you sign away your life. You don't read. You just go, go, go. I want to get into my device because I bought it. It's new. I want to use it. And that's what I'm trying to. I personally, you and I, trying to teach people to the best our ability that we know. And but see, if we talk about certain niche, we're talking about the one percentage over here. They know what we're talking about. But if I talk to my family, like that friend, she like, huh? This been done? Oh, I don't want to use this company or this is this and that. And then the conversation doesn't get it further because we are not taking our time to teach. I'm not saying that I know everything. I'm just teaching what I learned and from what I'm hearing. And I want to know how this is going to implement, not just today, but tomorrow with other companies that come in the future. Because I want
Okay,
it
so
done right.
yeah, we'll get into this. I just want to say for now that if people think I'm like protecting Apple, I'm not. I'm just frustrated that like in a way that people say that Apple gets a pass, but they're not looking at any other companies that are doing this. They're not doing research. There's just this, oh my gosh, Apple's doing this now. And there's a lot of misinformation about out there. So, what I will say is if what I've said is helpful, obviously let me know in the comments, do the like, the subscribe things. We're not done with this conversation by any means. This has been an hour in, but there's so much more to cover, and I appreciate everybody for coming on by and discussing this and continuing to make a point about this for the discussion back and forth, um, and for having an open conversation and for educating, because what this is about to me is trying to get answers. And I want other companies to answer it too. I want to know these things. I want to know these questions. And I am trying to reach out to a couple people about and actually somebody mentioned earlier where Sharkfin Tech said I'd love to hear Emily Baker's take. From what I know of the Fourth Amendment, you're correct. Um, I've actually reached out to her, and if other people would like to hear, if anybody else would like to kind of have this conversation be done, if people um I am part of her community and in her chat, and I watch her stuff as well. But if anybody else kind of thinks that this would be a good idea and has a way to maybe reach out to her, or want or believes that this is a good topic, feel free to do so. Do not, do not spam her. Do not go into her community and violate it. Do not. But I think this would be a great thing to discuss. She is she is a legal expert. She has the knowledge beyond, beyond what I can beyond what I studied, beyond what I know about the amendments. And she would be somebody that I would be honored to sit down and talk to this about, to get more information with this about. And I know she started off in the tech community and started off doing tech stuff, and now she blew up talking about legal cases and things like that. And this would be a great crossover between legality, technology, privacy, all that discussion. So one of the other concerns was that and I already addressed the idea of like, oh, I take a photo in it, and it could be considered inappropriate. How do they not accidentally flag that? That's a difference between AI just looking for everything and scanning everything, which is already done, but is done device side. It's why you can search for, you can search for a particular location where you took a photo, or part of, or a product or item or person that's in an image. Um, and it will show up, and that's done device side. Versus this is a comparison. This is a database of known content of this particular type that they're comparing it to. So I highly doubt that you taking a photo of your child is in that database. And if it is, well, that's concerning to me. Like, how did that and why did that end up in there? I mean, you're probably in jail if it's in that database. Now, what Lewis was alluding to, I do believe. I will I will say what I
Hmm.
think he is alluding to, and he can kind of say yes or no. And I believe that Lewis was alluding to the idea that this technology is used down the road to look for, like, oh, that person is a particular political affiliation because they're waving a certain flag or they're wearing a certain like hat or shirt, or that person has a gun, or that person has alcohol, or that person is doing this and that, and the misuse of it.
Correct.
Again, that comes back to trust. Do we trust these companies to not misuse it? But here's where I will respond to that. We're already trusting them not to do that. We're already trusting that they're being very forward when they come out and they're talking about what they're using our images for and if they're scanning it or not. We're already trusting that they're not just creating some sort of database and scanning all of our photos and trying to use it to further some algorithm to look for and block out certain content. We're already trusting them to not do this. So what I see changing is that they're coming out and being very forward about what they are doing and that there is opposition to that. And there should be. Nothing should come out uncontested. There should always be concern. My initial concern with this with Fourth Amendment and Sixth Amendment violations, and we've already covered Fourth Amendment and kind of how that's not of concern with this because they're not searching for content without you giving their permission. Just like it's not like the police knocking down the door and coming. It's like you invited them in and they spot something in clear view. And Sixth Amendment is right to face the accuser, which means, at least as far as I'm concerned, Apple would have to be subpoenaed. Apple would have to sign an affidavit, and then they would have to be subpoenaed to show up in court to testify to the validity and show proof as far as the line of evidence, the flow of evidence as it coming from one thing to another, like proving whose image that was and where it derived from and showing that, which becomes very complex. And Apple knows that. And Apple also knows what they do and don't have access to and that they can and can't prove. So my next question is, and thought on this kind of is, oh, I gotta address this because it kind of made me chuckle at first, but this issue is more important to all of us than Britney Spears' conservatorship. With all due respect to Emily, it kind of made me chuckle. Yes, I respect what she does, and I do agree that like this affects all of us, and this affects all of us whether we are Apple users or not, because this puts it in the limelight, and this affects whether there's potential for this to make its way to the Supreme Court to be discussed. How does digital information and how are companies held responsible for, and are they held responsible to the same action, and what is the interpretation of different amendments? And so I will head in the direction of this is actually heads in a direction that I was going. So wow, okay, hold on. So what concerns me next on this is, how do we know that this won't be misused? Well,
That's my
I
problem.
already said, we are already trusting that technology like this isn't being misused based on the fact that nothing has been said, basically. Now, Apple is coming out and saying this is what we're going to do, and now we're all concerned. But where's the concern of, like, trusting that any company isn't already doing this? The only trust that we can have is that we haven't seen some headline that says, 10,000 accounts found to be in possession of such and such content on such and such servers. Imagine this. If we saw a headline that said 10,000 Google Photos accounts to have been shut off and handed over to the FBI due to the FBI's belief that these accounts belong to terrorists or this and that. We haven't seen that headline because that headline will never exist. The government wouldn't want us to know that exists. The government wouldn't want us to know. But Apple has, time and time again, given a huge middle finger to the FBI, to the government, saying we will not provide access. We will not tell you who this came from. We will not provide access to this device, and we do not have access to that. Time and time again. And I believe this is a continued step. And I believe that they want a case to come out, and I believe that they want the FBI to try to subpoena them so that they can go to the Supreme Court and say, we do not have access to this. And this is yet again another instance in which our technology is used to interpret an image and to come back with results that remain private, that remain anonymous based on this, so that they can prove to their customers that they want your data to be secure and private, so they can prove those words. Because if you look at Apple's headline, what did they say in there? What did they read? Did you read like the page? I mean, you saw Viper did his stream and they read through. What was on there that they talked about? They talked about privacy and how user privacy was an important part of developing this technology. And everybody's coming out and saying, well, this is contra to privacy. How is it? I believe that people that are saying that is because they haven't read how this works. They've read the headlines. They've echoed what everybody's saying. They're echoing outrage without doing their own research. And I'm not calling out anybody in particular, but I'm saying do your own research. Don't even trust what I'm saying. Don't trust what I'm saying. I'm not asking you to trust what I'm saying. I'm asking you to do your own research. I'm asking you to look into the resources. I'm asking you to put everybody under this limelight and to determine whether or not you can trust them is on you in your own eyes. It's not on the company. It's not on what I say. It's not on what Lewis says. It's not on what Mark says. It's not on what Miles says. It's not on what Tech Love and Mama says. It's not on what Renee Ritchie says. It's not on what Alt Dad Tech says. It's not on what MKBHD. It's not on what iMore. It's not on what Google says. It's not on what a typical Google search does. It is on the information that you can see. It is on what you've experienced that you can base it on. And that is the only trust. You can only trust with your own two eyes and can only determine based on the research you've done. And a very valid point here. Also, she's a big Apple user and fan, and knowing her, she probably will discuss this concern. I hope she does. I'm not even asking her to sit down with me. Wholeheartedly, I want to know her approach. And if anybody wants to, anybody, is close to her, tweet this at her. I would love for her to respond to some of my concerns. I would love for her to, say this is right. I would love to know, am I wrong in any aspect? Because you know what? I do not claim that I am flawless, but I do not just echo what's out there and shout it at the skies without doing research. I dig
but can I
into
say
things. I'm
something
a
else quick?
highly analytical person that refuses to just jump to conclusions without doing research, that refuses to let any company get away with anything that's a violation of law or contra to their claims. So I want to know, does anybody have any information about how these other companies are doing it and why they're not being forward about it? That's what I want to know. So yes, Lewis,
Yeah,
let's what's your question?
yeah. No, no, no. Sorry. I mean, I know you're on fire.
No, I'm good.
So I
I'm
was gonna.
starting to repeat myself now because I want to make sure that there is an
Yeah,
understanding of like I am not supporting one side or another. I am against the abuse that's being depicted by this, but I am not saying that Apple is flawless in this or and I'm not saying that they're right in this, I'm not saying that other companies are wrong in their methods, but I'm just looking at like how what's more secure? How do we interpret this? How do we further this? How do we inform ourselves? And what other questions do you guys have? What questions do you have, Lewis?
yeah. This is what I argue about people. They be like, "Oh, I don't care. I don't have to do nothing because I don't have to nine to high." That mentality is wrong, in my opinion. You know what I mean? If I'm gonna hold one company accountable, I'm gonna hold everybody accountable like you. I want to know what is being done in the back end so I could learn how they're doing things in this matter in this subject. I like to learn more. You know what I mean? Get more educated because, you know, if Apple's being transparent and open, then if we say something like you and I were discussing, oh, we fanboys, we trying to defend the company. No, we're trying to figure out the situation. Like you said, you give example. It's it's like example like a credit card. You don't have to have the number. You don't have to have the credit card number. You can have a different number every time generated. So it's almost the same example. But people here to jump the gun, they're not willing to read and stuff like that. And it's even in our circle that we are more educated. People are still not taking their time, and that's what the part. I'm not saying follow me, I'm correct. I'm just saying let's all talk about it and listen to each other, and then from like you said earlier, make a conclusion based on your knowledge. That's why I tell everybody, even my regular channel, that come to me. If you like what you see, subscribe. You get my point. It's not about me, but I'm saying research a couple of people and then make your own conclusion, and we can learn. If I don't know something, you could tell me, and I can learn, and I'll be like, oh, I was wrong, and you show me the proof, and I'll admit it. But people are, and that's when you don't get to listen to nobody. And you don't get to listen to nobody, and nothing get resolved because everybody's pulling their hair back and forth, and we all hear the commotion, but we don't. Are you listening? Are you hearing? That's the problem.
And the reason that we're discussing it from the Apple perspective, and I am, is because I don't have anything on the other companies. I do, but it's very limited, and I've discussed it. What I have is what Apple's said and what they've given. So that's why I'm discussing it from the Apple side of things because I can only discuss what I know. I can only and what I know can only be based on what I can read and what I can see with my own eyes. And so if I can't find the information about the other companies, I can't discuss them. That would be like calling me an Apple sheep if Apple was the only company that exists. Like the reason and I love all technology. This is a OnePlus 9. I mean, this is an LG Velvet. I have the case for the Velvet here. I have my Samsung phone is over by the bed, and I love all technology. I got rid of my Pixel 5. I sold that not too long ago. I look forward to picking up the Pixel 6, and my thing is, I'm using all these technologies, so why should I not know what all of them are doing? What all of these companies are doing with this? What all of these companies are doing with my images? What all of them are
Correct.
scanning for? Um,
Let's see.
so
No comment.
here's a couple things.
Yeah, go
Correct me
ahead
if
with the comment.
Sharkfin Tech says. Correct me if I'm wrong though, but there's still a loophole for I'm pedophiles, right?
Hmm.
If they choose to not upload pics, videos to iCloud. Yes, which basically is saying you are innocent until proven guilty, and Apple is not acting as the judge. They're not scanning your device just because it's an iPhone. they're scanning it when it goes to the iCloud. So if you do not use the iCloud, they do not have access to it. You maintain 100% possession of it and guaranteed privacy. Just like if I take this phone right here, when I bought it, if I bypassed all the Google sign-in stuff and just used the device to take photos, right? And I don't sign into any accounts on it, everything that's done on it remains on it. So all my photos remain on it if I'm not transferring to some cloud. If I haven't sent them to somewhere, uploaded them to anywhere, they remain on it. I could download APKs onto my computer and sideload them on it so that the device is never connected to a Google account. But then if I want to do updates, I would have to do it that way. The minute you connect it to the internet, part of your privacy is gone. Now, it's based on what you agree on, it's based on the companies you use, it's based on their stuff. This isn't to catch new people. This is basically to prevent the spread of known content. Because Apple's saying it's not our job to catch new people. It's our job to try to prevent it from getting to our servers and from our servers to spreading it. Just like it's their job to, prevent other stuff from being spread. It's how they protect, they do updates whenever there's malicious attack issues in which an OS update needs to be put out to prevent that.
Correct.
If your device didn't scan and send information to them, then they would never know that there's a flaw. If people didn't submit information, so. Let's see. Tech Loving Mama says, my thoughts is, I don't do bad things or try to, and I have nothing to worry about. Also, if I personally don't want companies seeing my stuff, then I should not use their cloud storage, but that's me. Okay, so yes, it's like the I don't do bad things, so whatever. I will play devil's advocate to that and say, but at the same time, that's like saying, okay, come on in and search my house because I have nothing to hide. Well, I agree with that, and so do other people. We do have a right to protection, but that's why I believe why it's the you have to be signed up for iCloud, and it's scanning it when it's scanning it as it's being externalized, so that it's basically saying it's basically like you invited the police onto your porch so they can then look at everything that's within view of that, and if there's something illegal going on, they can turn you over. And then if you invite them further into like your living room, anything they see from that they can use. But if they're just standing out in front of your house, and then you have to hand an envelope over. If you're like, if they say, we have a warrant for such and such. We're looking for a person. They can come in your house, but they can't search through your drawers. They can't search inside your microwave. They can't look inside an area that's unreasonable for a person to fit in. This is the same thing, similar to that, in which you're giving them permission to have access to that. And if you don't want them to, then don't give them permission. And if you don't want Google scanning your photos, then don't store it on Google Photos. If you don't want Amazon scanning your photos, then don't store them on Amazon. If you don't want anybody having access to any of your stuff, then don't give them access to it. It's pretty much that plain and simple. Like, if I don't want my neighbors having access, seeing inside my house, I close my blinds. If I don't want them hearing what's going on, I'm not yelling and fighting with my wife with the windows open or arguing with her at all. Like, there is sort of responsibility for you providing access to other people. Like, that's a dual-sided street.
Yeah, I got a question after you finish.
Let's see. Always watching, more reason to always look good. Well, I try, Oh, I don't know if he was talking about that. But does it make it right? Who decides or interprets, the machine or the person behind it? Both. Because you agree to use this technology, and the companies try. One of the reasons why I use certain companies' products is because they're open. They're more open about what they're doing. They're more open about what access they have. I can see how the technology works. What concerns me is when you can't and then you just trust it. That concerns me. And if at any point, if there was something that came out that said, "Oh, OnePlus is you know leaking passwords," then I stop using their products. Google Pixel gets hacked, and million
Ooh.
and million Google gets hacked, and millions of people are susceptible to leaks. What would I do? Based on that information, I would go in and either shut out all my Google accounts and transfer everything over, or go in and create new passwords. I would do what I need to do. Just like if I say, you know what, I don't want them scanning my images that leave my device and go to their stuff, then don't use theirs. It's plain and simple. You are not forced to use iCloud Photos for backup. If you were, then antitrust would come into play. You can use Google Photos,
Correct.
but keep in mind that Google scans your stuff too. You can use Amazon Photos. I have been. Keep in mind that Amazon scans your stuff too. Keep in
And
mind there
how
is fine
about
print with every damn company out there. There is fine
yeah?
print with all of them, and you can't say, "Oh, I want to buy it naive and not read it," and that it's their responsibility. That's the thing.
Uh, yeah, I got a question when you got a chance.
Um, you have that right, but you give the cloud service, aka landlord, permission to enter by signing up for their lease. They can search if the lease you sign says they can without permission. Yes, and in the state of Michigan, at least as far as I know, in order for the landlord to enter your property, they have to give prior notice. Um, and then whether you want to be there or not is up to you. If I was renting property and my landlord goes, you know what, we need to come in on Monday, to do some repairs. We are giving you prior notice. You, depending on your lease, you can say, nope, I won't be home, but I will be on Tuesday. Can you come back then? And then they have to, if your agreement is that. If your agreement is they just have to give prior notice, then they can come in. They can use the key. They can come in. They can do the fix, and they can leave. Just like the police can issue a warrant that says they can enter your property when you're not there. Just like there's no knock warrants in some states. It depends on that agreement, and it depends on that. So I think that kind of sums up my thoughts on this right now, and some of the concerns as far as like, oh, they're gonna scan and they're gonna find my photo that I took of my, of my kid, or they're gonna find the inappropriate images that two consenting adults sent between each other. If they were going to do that, they already would have. Well, for one, if they're going to find that, most likely you didn't delete it and it got uploaded to their servers, but they're not, and they're only going to find it if that's the permission you've given them. Um, and they're not scanning for new stuff. It's comparative versus analysis of new. It's like it's like you go into the doctor's office, right? And you go to the hospital and you say, I'm not feeling well. And so they run these tests, right? And they run these blood tests and anybody who wonders, I've been watching Chicago Med, so this kind of brought in this comparison. They're gonna do ECGs, EKGs, blood tests, X-rays, um, MRIs, CAT scans, all this stuff, right? They're going to do as much as they need to do to find the problem. But how do they find that problem, Lewis? How do they find it? How do they know what the problem is?
Mm-hmm.
They're
Tabio would
compare
just
they're comparing it to known stuff, right?
mm-hmm.
Because they know what a blood clot looks like. They know what a penetration of the lower femoral artery looks like. They know, so they can compare it. And if something comes back and they go, well, we don't know what's going on, then what do? They have to find potentially a new disease or unknown effect based on all the research that's been done. I go in, it might be that I have Michael Pepper disease. I have some unknown, un, unseen, like it hasn't been seen before disease. That's kind of what this is doing. It's only able to determine based on what's known. Where AI that looks for new stuff is like a doctor having already done that and having to determine what's causing your disease because based on every possible test that can be done, it's not cancer, it's not it wasn't a seizure, or the seizure wasn't caused by an aneurysm, it wasn't a stroke, it wasn't a heart attack. Um, you don't have a blood clot, you don't have internal bleeding, you don't have this, you don't have that. What are they gonna do? They have to figure it out. Um, let's see. Technically, agreeing to their terms and conditions to use their services is like a lease agreement with a landlord, and I believe in court treated almost the same too. Yes, you are. It's the same reason why Apple wants uh is requiring companies to let you know when they're accessing your camera and their microphone, and you have to give permission. And if you don't, and they do use that, they get kicked. They will get removed. They'll get kicked off from the App Store. They are required to request that, and you have to grant it for them to use it. Let's see. Facebook and Microsoft, I'm sure, do similar stuff. I can only imagine what Tesla is listening to in your conversation in their cars. Like you said, you just have to search harder for their disclosures. Yep. And this is what like concerns me is when like companies are not disclosing it, and when one company discloses it and then they're attacked for disclosing it, and then there's like petitions for them not to do it. Are they petitioning the rest of the companies not to do it? That's my concern. Like if they get 200,000 signatures that says we want Apple to not do this, for one, Apple will say 200,000 out of a billion devices is not much, or out of a billion users is not much. But on the other hand, if they want to please everybody, the question then comes into play: are they, are other companies doing this? Are other companies going to be approached with the same treatment, or are we only doing that? Are we only looking at it because it's Apple and they said privacy? So should they have not talked about privacy but still offered that? Should they have not marketed for privacy but still offered the same features?
Yeah, I agree with you because my concern is Apple's being open and they're getting ridiculed, and other companies are not being open or disclosed, and we're not questioning those companies. I would like to question everybody and learn their policy as much. I'm using their service. I want to know what I'm getting to, and the problem is the people because we got Facebook, we got Instagram that is almost it was based photo and stuff like that. I just want to know what they do with the information. It just all is a part of learning. That's why I watch Viper, I watch Take 07. I'm talking to you to try to understand it better to get a better understanding. And you're doing a great explanation. And for me, I understand and I got more from you than the other stream, but I'm putting pieces and pieces together. Like we discussed, we don't know all the answer. But 10 people talking about it, we can learn from each other and we could then talk about it more fluently and more better on the situation because it does concern because that's why things that don't get put on the server level because what happens the server get hacked, what happens the servers go down and stuff like that. People gotta think about that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what happens if somebody like if you if you believe what Apple says, they say we don't have access into your device. So, if their servers get hacked, then your device is still good. Your device is still maintained as secure as can be, and if they get hacked, all they have to do is do something that basically temporarily removes any sort of communication between their servers and your device, and now your device maintains security. But if you want their servers to handle all of this, then that means you are handing over permission to their servers, and if their servers get hacked and then something comes out,
Exactly my point.
you're just accepting that, saying that, well, they can come back and slap me because they can say that, well, we know who it came from. I don't want that. That would be like me being okay with just instead of the FBI having to have a warrant to search my house. I'm just gonna take everything from my house in order to make sure it's safe. I'm just gonna take everything from my house instead of me searching through it. Instead of FBI having to have permission or whatever. I'm just gonna take everything from my house and I'm gonna walk outside right now and I'm gonna put it in my driveway, and anybody can come through and search through it, and then they can tell me, well, I found this in this box. That's more dangerous to me. That's more concerning to me. Actually, it's more like I take it over to my neighbors, and then I trust that my neighbors are going to search through it, and that um, they're not going to say something that's in their possession was mine, and they know that it came from me. Where the process of like keeping things encrypted and keeping things protected is like everybody in our town takes all of our possessions and brings them over to a warehouse somewhere that's completely empty, and then we ask for everything to be searched, and then and then they search through everything to make sure that nothing is being illegally stored in those warehouses. And the warehouses already do that. They have permission because you sign an agreement usually at most facilities to say that I am not living in this unit, I am not storing anything illegal here, I'm not committing any illegal activities. You sign like an agreement, like an affidavit, like an agreement on the contract when you agree to store stuff there, which is no different than your terms and services, which I've brought up before. Tech Love Mama has reiterated her understanding of it. Um,
But that's the problem. People hardly don't read that part, and then they get mad when something happens.
yeah,
That's another thing. It's irking me because you don't read that, and then you expect laws and rule regulation to change, like we're talking right now, on a certain subject. Then don't get mad if you're not willing to take the time to make it better. You know, one person and two and three make the change.
yeah.
But if we all don't understand, be like, oh, sign our life away, then don't get mad of the consequences. And that's what I told people. Why are you reading that before you put your phone the first time you get your phone, right? This is my analogy. Oh, I want to get, and you say, I don't care about that. I'll say yes, yes. Why are you saying yes if you're not taking your time? Don't come back when the thing's gonna go bite you in the ASSS. You get my point. And that's the part that I get frustrated with people because they be like, "Oh, you're so sometimes pushy." I'm not pushy. I'm trying to say it now, so 5 years from later, the laws don't get reverted or changed, and then we get penalized for everything because people didn't took their time to do the right thing at the beginning.
So here's what I would say if I was an Apple fanboy. I would say, well, the real reason I would say I'm so happy that Apple's finally doing this because guess what? Whenever Apple does something, they perfect it and they make it known. That's what I would do if I was an Apple fanboy. But let me say that again from my perspective. This is great that Apple is doing this, and here's the new part. And being forward and transparent about it and bringing the
Transparency.
attention to it and exposing that this exists to make other companies liable for their method to do this as well. That's the difference. I don't care what company does it. If Apple had come out, if Apple had started doing this and just placed it in their terms and services, said, issued an email to every user or had a pop-up that says, we have new terms and services, please read below and agree to them to continue to use iCloud, which they could have done, which I have gotten lots of emails from other companies that says, we have new terms and services, please read them over, and when you're done, click agree.
Correct.
They could have done that. Right now, what they are doing is, before it even is released, before it even comes out this fall, in like probably about, I'm going to say in about 6 weeks or so, we should be seeing the final version of it when the iPhones are announced, mid-September or so. So they're trying to be proactive. They are trying to come out ahead of time and be like, this is what we're doing. We want you to be informed. And ask questions so people can ask questions. Because if we can see anything from the past when there's been questions about stuff, we have seen like Tim Cook and Craig Federighi and different people actually come out like on video or and issue statements saying, answering those questions. Now, obviously, we know that there are attorneys involved, and so there's some stuff that can't be divulged, and there's intellectual property when it comes to it, and like patents and things like that as far as the actual. But the process, they're very open about. And unless you are going to get a degree in computer science and study hashing to really, really, really dig any deeper, they did a pretty good job at educating the user as far as like the process and how it's done. And what I am trying to do is dig deeper into that, and kind of hopefully interpret it beyond that to make it even less confusing, in case in case that was a little confusing, and also compare it. Which I would love to do. I can only kind of compare it based on, and I'm not really doing a comparison. I'm kind of doing a like, this is what it. If other companies are doing it a different way, and those companies are doing it, XYZ way, this is how it's different. But I'm not doing a true comparison because I can't, because I have no way of knowing. And even then, even if I did, I can't do a comparison because it's not a physical thing. I can only base it on what information I am given from these companies. And so I can do an opinion, and I can state truths but not facts. So it's true that Apple says this, and it's true to me that this is what they're doing. But the difference between a truth and a fact is there. For example, Tech for Your Needs could tell me something that is a truth but not a fact. And how would that be possible? Let's say he says to me, I just saw lightning strike and hit my neighbor's car. And that could be true. But how would that not be a fact? Here's how. From his perspective, that lightning bolt came down and it hit the neighbor's car. But it actually hit next to it. And so from another neighbor's perspective, they say, no, it didn't. They are both stating their truth, but only one is fact. Tech for Your Needs' truth is that it hit that car. The neighbors is that it didn't. When they look and they see, and you go down there and you see where it hit, and you look at cameras maybe that caught other angles, and you see, oh, it hit the ground. Guess what? The neighbor's truth was also a fact. But Tech for Your Needs did not lie. He just didn't state something that was later proven. From his perspective, it was the truth, but it was not a fact. So I can only interpret these based on what's out there, and that is my truth. But in no way can be confirmed as a fact unless quite literally these companies start coming out and expressing how they're doing it, and even then, it is still a truth, because if we can't prove it, it can never become a fact. Which kind of sums this all up. Privacy is a truth, but not a fact. Right?
Yep.
So I would like to say it has been an hour and almost 47 minutes. And I would like to say thank you to everybody in the chat. I would like to say thank you to all my subscribers. I would like to say thank you to people who watch this in the replay. And please understand that this is my opinion, my interpretation based on reading through all the documentation that I could find about this, and my perspective. And feel free to disagree, and let's have a healthy conversation down below in the comments. And let's use this opportunity to become more educated, to do our own research, as that is all I've ever asked for with my content. And all I ever want is to educate to the potential based on my experience and knowledge as clearly as I can. And to ask that my subscribers, viewers, do the same justice for yourself in doing your research. And also looking to see, if you look at multiple sources, are they actually doing their research? Or have you just found 10 people that are all echoing one person? Because that is also a difference of because I've noticed that there is a phrase that in this discussion, a lot of people are repeating that same phrase, and that was one phrase made by one person.
Sorry, I was looking at the comments.
Here's another thing. How you feel to you is a fact. Doesn't mean it's the truth when it comes to certain situations as well, to just give a different example. So, I will say with that, thank you for everybody being so involved in this, in the chat, and I'm sure there will be more in the comments. Thank you for everybody for watching. I know this was a very impromptu stream, and I know that this has probably been beaten over and over and over again. This has been something that's been discussed over and over and over again. But I believe that everybody has their own
take,
their own perspective, and it's a responsibility to me to discuss it. Because there are things that get left out. And there are things that I could go in comments and talk about. But it's my responsibility to my viewers and my subscribers and my people to try to discuss this and try to educate and to try to have a good communication on this. And so thank you to, of course, my guests, Tech for Your Needs, Mark Sequence, Sharkfin Tech, Tech Lovin' Mama, Art Dog, and anybody else who watched the live stream. And of course, the viewers in the replay for watching. And I hope you all have a good rest of your weekend. Stay informed, stay educated, stay opinionated, question things, and more importantly, I don't only talk tech, but I live it. Thank you all. Have a good weekend. And God bless.